Hey, we're going to try one. This one does not spew hate on accident. So we're going to try again Wednesday, May 15th, my regular class. We're going to go a bit further from there. All kinds of fun things to talk about. Hopefully not all depressing. We'll try to aim for somewhat good stuff. Last homework was due today. Last bell work was today. We ended up talking about notebooks and how they are optional to turn in starting next week. Hall passes can be turned in if you want to. And I did find the picture of my sub from yesterday because I had her in 7th grade. I can creepily look up pictures of you guys and your siblings to be used for all kinds of torturing. Just realize that not only can you use it from other people, they can also use creepy pictures of you because I'm happy to help spread that around. The Charger Challenge coming up on Monday, if you are interested. We tried to set it up so it's after the track season kind of ends, so you can still join us if you do track, and that's coming up on Monday. And that opens up to all kids at 2:45. And then we sold the candy and stuff like that from there. And then we got to our bell worky thing on that one. On a real quick note, on a side thing in case I forget. And not to attack the kid who yelled a moment ago without saying his name on here. But the whole subscribe to PewDiePie thing, the reason why I cut that off is if you were unaware, that was a thing started by a white supremacist who was trying to spread hate. And it was an underground thing he did to try and bring attention to it. The thing is, kids don't know that. You guys just thought it was a meme that came from it, but it was a meme started by a hate group and a white supremacist. And that was sort of why he had to shoot it down after a while and it became a big thing. But that goes to the whole idea of kids not knowing the reason behind why things happen. Fine. Another timeout real quick, because it kind of ties together. I don't want to spend long on it, so do not try and get me distracted, you horrible people. But as far as the threat thing, just to touch on it quickly with it, it's similar to the whole PewDiePie thing, where it was a thing where it was mostly people talking about a thing that didn't necessarily exist in the first place. Out of curiosity, how many of you guys saw the original Snapchat post? Yay. If those of you who did see the original Snapchat post, if you paid attention to it, because I did, one, I had kids send it to me early Sunday morning. By the time 9, 10 a.m., I had kids sending me, hey, Mr. Brovicast found this on Snapchat, you should be aware. I had sent it on to Mrs. Thorpe, Mr. Butts, and the police, and they contacted back to me by like at noon, and they're like, hey, we already know about this, we're on top of it, taking care of it. And I was like, go you. If you have that picture and you look at it, realize it is a screenshot of a screenshot of a screenshot of a screenshot of a screenshot. If you go all the way back to the original one, which is at the very top of it, there's no actual threat made. What it came from was a kid, and if you've seen the other one, have you guys seen the other post that the kid made with the gun? The first post that was made was just a kid being dumb, trying to get attention about himself. And he posted Snapchat pictures of himself holding a gun. And the ones I've seen, and the ones that have been sent to me, he's mostly pointing the gun at himself and saying pew pew and stuff like that. There is no, I'm going to go shoot up a school. It's just a kid being dumb, as kids do, trying to get attention, as kids do, by going, hey, look, I'm cool, I'm holding a gun. Now, for those of you who play airsoft, it's hard to tell if that's a real gun or an airsoft gun. Because I have an airsoft gun that if I pulled it out, would probably get me shot by the cops. Because they look frighteningly realistic. Same thing along the lines with this one. But what happened was, kid posted that original picture. Someone else sees that picture. And here's where the problem comes in. Someone else tried to be good. And they were saying, hey, this kid has a gun. Someone else sees that post. And they start going, hey, this kid has a gun. He might be shooting up a school. Someone else goes, hey, he lives in Fishers. Another person sees and goes, hey, that's Fishers Junior High. And it becomes a thing where it just begins to spin, not because anyone's trying to do anything awful, but because people are trying to be good and they're trying to pass along information. Problem was, there was no actual threat made. If you go back and look at the top of that, it says this kid, I'm not going to use his name because I don't want to bring more attention to him, is going to go shoot up a school. He never says it himself. It's someone else who saw his picture and then saw these other posts and then just assumed things. And it sort of spun out of control from that point. What's that?
Why did he go to junior?
One, a lot of that also is kids talking. Two, we don't know if it was him. Part of the issue is him pointing a gun at himself is not illegal. It's just stupid. Part of the issue may have been, it may have been one of the other people who ended up going, because they never give us the name of the person. It may have been one of the kids who said, hey, he's going to go shoot up Fisher's Junior High. And that's where the issue comes in. It may well have been a person who started off trying to do something good, who then ended up spinning things out of control. You might not know this, but some kids like drama, and they like to stir up crap. It brings them happiness. And so some kids like to throw themselves in the middle of that. And I've got a feeling that's what happened here quite a bit too. Plus, fear is scary in the fact that it gets people to react to things. Quick side note. This same thing happened on a national level last week, where it was a state senator made a Twitter post. And his Twitter post was along a meme. We're supposed to post the 5 jobs you've had. Like, it'd be like, the 5 jobs I've had before now. It was like state senator, and it was like I worked as like a clerk, and then a grocery store, and then like a store. And you list like the 5 jobs you did. That's all he posted. There was an internet troll. You guys know what an internet troll is? Yeah. Internet troll saw that and decided to have fun. So he took that senator's tweet and said, look, there's a hidden message inside of it. And he went through and highlighted where it says 5 jobs I've had. And he highlighted the J in jobs, the I in I've, and the HAD of had. So it spells out J-I-H-A-D. Jihad. Jihad is what happens when the people who are from the Middle Eastern countries go off and try to attack people. And he goes, look, it's a hidden message. He's trying to get his people to attack a place. And then he went through in the 5 different jobs. He highlighted the first letter of each of the different jobs he had and said, look, it's going to be an attack on a school with the initials G-U-S-V-D. Because he worked like grocery store, utility worker, and had all these 5 jobs. He then Googled a random school with the letters G-U-S-V-D and found one that was in California and said, there's going to be an attack on this school. Here is my proof. It got traction. People reposted it. People freaked out. Because of that, last week, they had to cancel this elementary school's end-of-year carnival and parties because the parents freaked out about it because they said this is a thing that's going to happen. Even after they went back and found the original troll, and he was like, yep, I did that. It was hilarious. People still freaked out about it. The reason I tell you that is adults also have the same issue. Adults can get pulled into this fear and the spreading of stuff. So what's happened here is the same thing that happens to adults. It's just human nature. People will get pulled in and they freak out about stuff because fear is scary. So that's more what happened. I will tell you from my point, I have my own child that goes here. I am a teacher here. If I thought there was a legitimate threat, my child would not be here and I would not be here. But today, I think this is probably the safest building to be in because there's so much attention on this place that there's very little chance of anything happening here. There's very little chance of kids skipping class today, let alone showing up with any kind of weaponry because of that. I rambled longer than I wanted to. I apologize. But that was a thing that's been freaking kids out and I think people listening to keep talking about. Once we get past the end of today and we get to move on to tomorrow, hopefully we get to move on from there. To here. Did you guys have any other things we had mentioned before? Yay. Delina.
Wait, like for this?
Yeah. Well, I was going to go more for the good news than the bad news. I was trying to think more of like a happy, uplifting thing.
Yeah, I know. That's
Okay.
honestly happy. You should get like a class pet. Oh,
Technically, I have 30 class pets.
no, like a wow.
I used to have a class pet. I used to have 2 rats I used to keep. I had like a little cage, stuff like that. I had 2 problems with them. One, they would make noise during class, and you guys get distracted by air molecules. See, they're randomly distracted right over there. Nothing even happened. So having random pets in my room, it was super distracting. 2, pets poop. And apparently poop is stinky. And no kid wanted to sit near them. They're like, it stinks over here. And I'm like, it smells like 7th graders. Like, no, it smells like rat poop. And I'm like, well, so I had them for a couple years, and I had to release them into the wild, and they got eaten by hawks. But still, I had pets for a little bit. No, I just assumed they did.
What about fish?
Pet rats don't do well in the wild, but I can't fight them.
Yeah, fish don't.
Fish don't, but also fish are what's called incredibly boring.
But it's still pets.
So it is. I mean, I have a pet giraffe and I have a pet elephant. They're as exciting as fish. I know. So just look over there. So and it's a nice day outside.
You should get a parrot, but then you just put like one of those.
Should I actually get a parrot?
Yeah.
Because that's what I want. A thing that kids can teach to say bad words.
You can put it.
All of a sudden, I'd come back from a substitute, and the bird would be like, "Hey, you!" I'm like, "What the?" And I'm like, "Oh, you should never have a substitute." So that's my worry on that one. Anyway, back to here. Back to our actual bookie book stuff. For those of you who are reading and staying up on things, if you have finished the book, there is a scene coming up, which will be in chapter 10. When I told you this was the first book that I remember making me cry, it's the scene in chapter 10. It's the scene between Mark and Brian.
That one was depressing.
That, for me, like I said, that's what made me. It wasn't even about death as much as what we're actually going to get to with here. Page 68, 69. I want to read that scene to you because they actually tell you the title of the book and it says that was then, this is now. But it's also a thing I'm going to talk about coming up next week with my stories. It connects because both of these, that and the book, connects to my stories. So it goes all the way back. This was right after Mark got whacked in the head with the bottle. And then they're like sitting and talking to each other. And we find out, where Mark keeps his secret cigarette stash.
Under his mattress.
And it's during that part when he finds out. He says he has a little conversation. And he goes, I'm just going to start at the very bottom of page 68. And he goes, yeah, but now we total up to something by ourselves. Just as easy. I understood exactly what he was talking about. Mark had the habit of thinking the way I did. The difference was, he said it, and I usually didn't. Yeah, but still, don't you kind of miss that one for all for one routine? It's kind of sad, really, when you get to where you don't need a gang. I mean, like you did before. Yeah, but it's kind of a good thing, too. When you know your own personality, so you don't need the one the gang makes for you. Yeah, Mark sighed. But there's a difference. I wonder what the difference is. The difference is, I said evenly, that was then, this is now. Mark flashed with that lion-like grin. Brian, you are brilliant. We didn't say much the rest of the afternoon. We were just thinking. I believe that passage is much more powerful than we realized at the time. Junior high, in my belief, is about making mistakes and figuring out who you are. A lot of you guys, the kids you hang out with in 7th grade are not the same kids you're going to hang out with in 8th grade. And they're not the same kids you're going to hang out with in high school. Your friend groups are going to change from this year to next year. And they're going to change from next year going into high school. And it's not a bad thing. Because a lot of what junior high is figuring out who you are. Is discovering what personality you have. A lot of you guys define your personality right now by who you hang out with. By, do I hang out with sporty kids? Do I hang out with nerdy kids? Do I hang out with the kids who make poor choices? And that's how you define who you are. Which is natural. It's part of what you're supposed to do. But life is, you eventually figure out your own personality and who you are. You leave those friends behind. What happens in the book is Mark and Brian go 2 different directions. It's the same thing that's going to happen to you. One of the stories I tell you next week is how that happened to me. Where you have friends now that will not always be your friends. And it's heartbreaking. Because a lot of you will want to continue to be friends with people. But you're going to go different directions. Either you're going to end up making choices they don't agree with, or they're going to make choices you don't agree with. But eventually, you're not going to be people that hang out anymore. And it's not always an awful thing. It's just sort of how people grow apart. The idea of then where it says that was then, this is now, is the idea of growing up and maturing. The idea that eventually you are going to become your own personality. You're not going to need your group of friends to define who you are. You're going to figure out who you are all on your own. Speaking of figuring out who you are all on your own, what poor choice does Eminem start making? He starts smoking pot. But as we find out in chapters 8 and 9, he's not just smoking pot, it's He starts doing the hallucinogens and the LSD, and that's when you get to the really weird scene with the spiders and him sitting in a corner and stuff like that. It's okay, it's just no alarm going off.
Morgan.
Your dork alarm's going on.
City, Iowa?
I don't know. We talked about the ribbon. We did the jerk boys in the Corvette. With the acid thing, when I mentioned before about the fact that it's a hallucinogen that makes you see things that aren't there, this is what happens to Eminem. When he takes it, he's sitting in the room and he has that conversation about seeing the spiders and then freaking out because they're attacking him. That is one of the side effects of it. You don't get to control what you see from it. The story I remember, because this happened in college, a friend of mine. You ever had where you have like an itchy thing in your skin? You have like, you look down, you feel like there's a bug on you, and you look down, there's no thing there.
Especially when I'm playing a game that I can't.
It's the problem is it's just nerves. It happens with your body. Your nerves will react and twitch, and just all of a sudden you'll feel a thing. But it's just the reason that you can feel a bug on you is because your nerves react to it. Sometimes your nerves just do their own thing, and the trigger like bug. Oh, nothing there. Here's the problem with LSD. What happened to a friend of mine? When that happens and you have LSD, you'll see a bug there. Because the only reason you don't see a bug there is because there's not actually a bug. But that's only because your eyeballs are telling you there's no insect. But with LSD, it'll allow you to see a bug. So you'll look down, you'll feel a thing, and you'll look down and you'll see a bug crawling on you. Here's where the issue comes in. Can you get rid of that bug?
No.
Because it's not a real one, and that's what starts to freak people out. Because then you smack it, and you're like, I got you. Then you pull your hand back, and the bug's still moving. But then if you smack your arm, smack it. Pull your hand away. Now do you feel that sensation throughout your arm?
Yeah.
Well, on LSD, your brain fills that in. And now all of a sudden, you feel other things moving underneath your skin. Because as you feel that, because you smack it and you have that radiation, now you look down and you can see your skin moving because from it. Sometimes with LSD, it can be a good thing, if you will, because they'll have people, the reason people take it is because you'll have what's called a good trip, which means happy things happen to you. And you get to see rainbows, and you get to talk to a chair, and you have stuffed animals that come to life. That's the good part. The problem is, sometimes you have bad stuff that happens to you, like the slapping of your arm, and then seeing the bugs, and then freaking out. Because when I was in college, I was at a party, and one of my best friends was on it. And we were they had a, not the strobe light, the thing that spins from the ceiling.
Disco ball.
Thank you. Disco ball that was going around. And the disco ball kept hitting people's necklaces and earrings, the light from it, and you kept seeing the sparkles. He freaked out because he kept seeing bugs jumping from person to person. And he saw these white bugs because every time the light went around, you'd see a sparkle. And he's like, and so it's hard to calm a person down when you're trying to tell a person the thing you see is not actually there, when their brain is telling them it's there. It'd be like me trying to convince you that Aaron's not sitting in the room and going, yeah, Aaron's absent today. You're like, no, I see him. I'm like, no, he's absent. That's an empty seat. You're like, no, his stuff is there. I'm like, no. The problem is you're like, Mr. Broviak, I'll prove it to you. And you go over and just like, look, I'm touching him. With LSD, you'll feel him. You can reach over and touch. Everyone else just sees you touching the air, and you're touching a thing. And you're like, no, I'm touching him. Everyone's like, you're not touching anything. You're like, I'm touching his hair. Like, you're not touching. But you'll feel it because the only reason you don't feel it is because there's nothing there, because your brain tells you there's nothing there. That's what gets scary. With Eminem, that's what freaks him out. He keeps seeing things that aren't there. Did you have a thing?
Why is there a bike on the acid tab?
Well, it happened with, and it's not just the bike, it's the ones that are up there too, and the ones that are over here. The way it works is the LSD is actually just a liquid, but it's a super crazy powerful liquid. So the way that people would take it is you dip paper into this liquid, and you pull it out and you let it dry. And then you just break off a piece of the paper and you let it dissolve into your mouth. And what they would oftentimes do is the paper would have random weird things on them. And so that oftentimes look like little kitty things because then you couldn't get caught with them. Like, what? No, it's just a random sticker. What are you talking about, old person? I'm totally cool. And so they would do random pictures and stuff like that. It was a thing back in the 60s and 70s. Jeez. Yes and no. They do, but one of the other drawbacks is like with alcohol, alcohol lasts a couple hours. Marijuana lasts a couple hours. LSD lasts 12 to 15 hours. So when you're on it, and the problem is, when you're done, you're like, I'm tired, I don't want it anymore. Your brain goes, nope, we're only halfway through. And it keeps on going, and then that's when people start freaking out from it. Because you want to stop seeing things, and your brain's like, nope, we're going to keep on seeing things. And that's where it becomes, the problem is, going to sleep, same issues as your brain won't let you fall asleep. And then all of a sudden you hear things in the room, and you wake up, and then you're going to see a thing in the room. You ever had that when you're at night, and you hear a thing, there's nothing there? What if your brain told you there was something there?
I'm just like,
And that's where the issue comes. And that's why here in that book, in that scene, Eminem, when he's freaking out, there's a guy sitting in the room with him. Oftentimes, people go on a trip, is what they would call it, is you have someone, a babysitter, who watches you. Because oftentimes, people would jump out of windows. Because what's telling you that you can't fly? Your brain. But what happens if your brain goes, you can fly?
You're going to try to fly.
Then why would you not try? Because the only thing stopping you from flying is the part of your brain saying, you can't fly. But what if that part of your brain went, no, you can fly. You just got to jump out the window and flap your wings. You're like, I have wings? You look down, and you have wings. And you're like, I'm flying! And so that becomes the issue. And that's where you have to have somebody go, hey, you don't actually have wings. And they try to talk you down. It's a scary, scary thing, because it messes into the brain. Unlike not trying to condone, but like marijuana and alcohol, it just makes you want to sit there and smile. LSD goes a different direction, makes you see things. And that's where it gets a bit more scary. I showed you guys that picture already. We did the bench seats already. The chart, that was the Camaro with the girls were flirting. We had the Corvette with punching them in the face. And we got to the drive. All right. Did there. When they were on the ribbon, what did Eminem decide to do? And that's when he runs away. We find out he doesn't get along with parents because apparently his parents harass him. Like, what kind of parents harass their kids? That's just weird.
Every single parent.
Right, every parent ever. Now, I mean, he was failing classes, which was one part of it. The other thing that his dad gave him a hard time about was his hair. But his grades off. But a lot of it is parents will always find things to harass kids about as far as clothing. It's what old people do. Even though when your parents were young, they did the exact same thing. And when their parents were young, they did the exact same thing. It's like a weird old person thing. I've got to make fun of you for doing the same thing I did when I was a kid because it's old person law. I don't know. Old people are weird. I know because it happened to me too.
You're probably doing it.
I do better with it with my daughter because one, teaching helps because I realize I listen to you guys complain about your parents all the time. And so it helps me not do those things with my daughter. But my daughter's also a teen and a human, so she's going to make mistakes. And it's my job to yell at her. Sometimes she's smart, unless you're talking about me. But then sometimes I'm smart. No. Yeah. All right. Tomorrow. No more distracting, dealing with other life issues. I want to talk about stuff in the book because I have good discussions to get to. We just got to stop this me being sick and stupid crazy people in the world. Put your books back over there, and we'll talk more tomorrow. Give me a look.